Welcome to Quarantine Cuisine, the Cacio Pepe edition.
Cacio Pepe!
So today, we're going to have the wonderful Chef Ian joining us. Hello, everyone. Woo! So without further ado, let's dig into this recipe, okay? And guys, this is your first step. Get your large pot, fill it with water, okay?
Get it all the way up.
We're going to turn it to medium heat. I'm going to tell you guys when to kick it up. So you should have the ricotta out draining. So we got it in a tea towel, okay? You guys see that, right? You're going to spread it out as much as possible to get that ricotta as dry as possible.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just patting this thinly, guys, and then getting as much of the surface area as dry as possible.
Now we're going to get it into a bowl. So, Ian, the first thing you want to do is we're going to grate half of that Parmesan cheese.
Okay.
And so you can grate that with a microplane or the cheese grater 3000.
I love that cheese grater 3000.
If you have a peeler, you can peel it, right? You're going to peel half of it, and then you're going to mix it all in, and that will work perfect.
So we're just going little thin strips just like this. And then as soon as you do it, it'll break up when you're mixing up this ricotta farce. It's not a problem at all.
We went ahead, we mixed all the egg yolks and all the eggs. So with this, what you're going to do is add 2 tablespoons of the egg mixture that we gave you. And now we're going to add some black pepper and truffle salt to this mix.
How much you think? You want to go pinch, go 2 pinches? It all depends on how much black pepper you like. We gave you guys plenty of extra. That way, depending on how much you like. Truffle salt, you don't need too much. The Parmesan has a good amount of salt in it already.
Yeah, go ahead and mix all that together. And with this ricotta farce, right, 1 pinches, 2 pinches, you guys are going to season it to taste.
And the reason why you guys are putting a little bit of egg into this ricotta farce is so that way when you go and you put it in your ravioli and then you drop your ravioli, the eggs are going to actually coagulate in the ricotta farce, and that's going to bind everything together. So it's going to tighten everything up. You'll see the consistency is already a little tighter with the Parmesan cheese and with the egg in there. And then that way you get this nice set ricotta farce when they come out. Nothing runs out.
Get that mixed together, and then you're going to take that and wrap it, and we're going to get that in the fridge. So now we're going to start making this pasta dough. So Ian, what you're going to want to do is get a bowl.
All right.
You're going to take all of the semolina and all the 00 flour.
Perfect.
So when you're making pasta dough, there's a couple different types, right?
Yep.
This is kind of a hybrid between 00 and semolina. And what we found is this is a really good recipe for rolling this out by hand. So in a bowl, you have all the semolina, all of the 00. And so we're going to mix all of it together. And then what we're going to do is take out a half cup, and we're going to reserve that as bench flour. And we're going to put all of this onto either your large cutting board or your pasta making surface.
Okay.
And so you're going to have it all mixed together. And then what I like to do is get a mound first. And then with your 2 fingers, you're going to poke right into the middle and start working your way out.
Okay.
And so you're making a well. The only place you guys can go wrong is if you break the well.
Don't break the well.
So make sure you have the whole perimeter of this well is about 1 inch. A test to see if it's big enough is if you can fit a deli inside it. So you guys see that?
Look at that.
The next step here is you're going to take out 2 tablespoons of egg per egg wash. So we got that over there, and then you want to put all that inside there.
All right.
We're going to add 1 teaspoon to the middle of this well. And so what does the olive oil do for the pasta well, Ian?
The olive oil gives it a little bit extra fat, and it'll help pull everything in together, gives your dough like this nice, rich silkiness to it, like we were talking about before. And yeah, The olive oil is a nice little touch to pasta dough.
And now you're gonna take your fork.
I'm just gonna go from the outside, and I'm just gently bringing flour into the pile.
Mm-hmm. And if you guys have never made pasta before, let me show you one little trick. So if you've never made it before and you need a little bit more wiggle room, you're gonna use your fork to push this out by a 1/2 inch. You guys see that? All you're doing is just buying yourself a little bit of room, using the back side of the fork to push this out by a 1/2 inch. And now what you're gonna do is little by little, you're gonna use that fork to start incorporating the flour into the egg mixture. If your well breaks, what you're gonna do is use your hand to save, right? Save that side of the wall. And you gotta work to build a barrier, okay? If you're trying to do this on a plastic cutting board, it won't work.
Will not.
You gotta do it on a nice surface, wood or marble or your countertop.
And go slowly, guys. There's no need to rush this part of it.
No need to rush it, okay?
It should start to be pulling together, guys. Little by little, it's starting to look more like a paste and less like just liquid eggs.
So if Ian stops mixing and his well breaks, he'll be okay. So that's the stage you want to get it to.
Yep.
And so he's going to keep mixing it like this, and then we're going to get to the dough chopping stage. So now you get it to this point, you're going to use either a knife or a bench scraper. And once you start using the bench scraper, you're going to get to the point, right, where you're chopping the dough. And so, again, just think about it, right? In the middle is a big wet substance. We're going to chop into the wet substance with the dry flour to mix it into a doughy substance.
Right now, it should be still a little, it's like this mixture of like tacky but coated in flour. But you'll see as I'm starting to cut this in, the eggs are going to absorb more and more of this flour every time I cut, little by little.
Yeah.
You want to work this dough to the point where it no longer sticks to your work surface.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just ever so slightly, if it's getting a little too tacky, and when you flour stuff, you want to kind of use the flick of a wrist. And that way, it's giving that nice, even distribution of flour throughout. There's no, like, you're not sprinkling it like you would salt. You're really flicking it on there. So I'll do it to the top, right? Flip it over, and then I'll do that same thing, just gently. You know, you're not putting too much on there. And then that way, it reduces some of the tackiness.
So now would you say you're at the point where you're ready to knead the dough?
I am definitely ready to knead the dough. When you've gotten the dough to this stage where you can form it into a mound, you never want to tear dough. You always want to roll dough. So when I'm kneading, I'm rolling the dough forward. So I pull the dough like this, right? You fold it in half, and then I'm going to put my palm into it, and I'm going to roll it forward. But I'm not, that's the thing. It's a gentle roll because you don't want to ever tear the gluten strains. Right now, what we're doing is we're building the gluten in this pasta to give you that beautiful chew. So I'm rolling the pasta, and then I'm going to do that same thing again. I'm going to fold half of it back, roll it forward. And then I spin my dough 90 degrees. And then you're just going to continue that process. So it's fold, roll. This second roll is coming back. You push it, rotate, fold, roll, roll, rotate. And then I'm just going to continue that process until I feel that my dough is where it needs to be. See, now I feel that it's starting to stick again because all that flour that I added has hydrated. So it's time to add a little bit more. Do this, hit it on my board, and then I'll go back at it.
Sometimes I would mix it together just like the recipe said, but then there'd be a lot of extra flour.
Yep.
And so what I was taught is if you have a lot of extra flour at that point, you just move that flour aside.
Yep.
And just work the dough that you have with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes different rooms will have different humidities.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? And flour will know that.
Yep.
Right? And so maybe you're at different elevations, different temperatures, right? And so that's where with making pasta dough, right, you just got to kind of feel it.
Yep.
If it feels like there's too much flour and you have excess flour, just move that excess flour around. If it feels like maybe it's a little too dry, you can add a touch of olive oil or even a touch of water back to that dough and keep working it in. It'll seem like it's too hard, and then you'll get to a point where it starts working it.
It's pretty crazy when you're making pasta because it gets to the point where it'll start looking nice, and then it's going to crack on you all of a sudden. And then if you just keep kneading it for a little bit longer, it'll snap all back together. There's a difference between pushing it like that and then rolling it forward. So I'm going to roll it, and with that, I'm letting the traction of the board take it all the way like that, you know? So what I'm going to do is take your dough and just start getting that motion first, and then you can start to apply a little bit of pressure with your palm, just the palm of your hand, and I'm letting it roll all the way down, extending my hand out. Your dough should come together, nice rounded ball right here. You should be able to poke it, and it should be able to come back a little bit. You see that? Give a little indent, spring back on you. And then you're just going to get it. Nice little circle. We're going to put it in a plastic bag. If you guys have saran wrap, you can always saran wrap it as well.
And we're going to let it rest.
And then just make sure to get all the air out if you guys are using a plastic bag. You just don't want to develop any sort of skin on your pasta.
And so why do you want to let the dough rest?
So we're letting the dough rest. That way it doesn't snap back. So you just work the gluten, right? You worked it. You just kneaded it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The pasta needs a break just the way that you need a break. The gluten just developed. It all came together.
So we're going to put that off to the side. We're going to let it relax, okay? And we're going to show you guys how to make the Cacio Pepe sauce.
The easiest way, just cut it right down the middle. Now you have 2 halves. This is a little chef trick to cut the shallot. You're going to take it. You're using your fingers as your guide, right? Your knuckles. So I'm going to have my hands here. And I'm not cutting all the way down the shallot. I'm leaving just the bit at the end whole. That way it all stays together. So I go down one way. And then I'm going to come across this way. So you can do 2 little cuts here. All right. Same thing here. If you need to peel the outer layer off, that's perfectly fine.
You just want to dice that shallot, okay? Ian's going to show you a way, but if you have a way you're comfortable with, go ahead, do that. We're just getting little dices.
Yep.
Show them approximately what size you're working with.
So you're going about just a small dice right here. You don't have to go crazy. It's not like a tiny little mince, but you don't want anything too big. We're gonna saute this, and this is gonna become our sauce.
So we got our shallot dice, and now I got my pan on, and we're gonna add all the olive oil to the pan. We're gonna save 1/4 of the butter for the very end, okay?
All the olive oil and 3/4 of the butter
that are in the saucepan. Awesome. So we're melting the olive oil, melting the butter. And then Ian's going to add all the shallots to this pan.
You're just lightly sweating it, guys. We're not getting any color on them. Just nice medium heat. Get the butter nice and frothy. Jay's adding a little bit of our beautiful Balinese truffle salt right now.
Yep. And so we just want to cook the shallot. That's it.
Just to translucent. Nothing more.
And now I'm turning the heat off, okay? So I got translucent shallots, turning the heat off, and I got 1/4 of butter to the left of the stove here. And so, Anna and Steve Allen, I have this on about medium heat. So heat where it's hot enough, it'll melt the butter, right? And cook the shallot, but not so hot that the butter is going to start browning. We want very kind of subtle flavors here because the pepper in this brings a lot of flavor.
Yeah. It's a very simple traditional dish.
Mm-hmm.
Butter, olive oil, pepper, cheese. That's it.
Yeah, and you guys will see. We got about 3 main components. We got the sauce, we got the pasta dough, and we got the filling. And what we're going to do is use all of those to make one very incredible dish.
That it is.
Our pot of water on the stove. Let's get that up to a boil. We have our sauce done with the heat off. And now we've got our dough rested, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull the ricotta mixture. And so now what I'm going to do is we're going to move this cutting board out of the way. We're going to get ourselves a serious amount of room to start rolling out this dough. What we're going to do is we're going to lightly dust this surface, right? And now we're putting this down, and we're going to work with a quarter of the dough first. Okay? So we're going to show you guys how to do a quarter of the dough and how to mix that into the sauce, and then we're going to let you guys take it from there and have fun making the raviolis.
If you don't eat it all today, you can make the pasta, don't cook it, and just pop it straight into the freezer on a tray with a little bit of flour on there, and you can save it for later.
Let's start rolling that up.
Absolutely. Add a little bit more flour, and then I'm just going to start by using the palm of my hand, and I'm just going to flatten it out. This just makes it a little easier on the cutting board. And you'll see that right now, if we didn't rest this dough long enough, then the dough would spring back on us. So right now when I go to press it, there's a little bit of it coming back, but for the most part, it's allowing me to spread it out easily. So once I got it to a point, you kind of want to square it out as best as possible, make it into like a little rectangle or a little square. And you'll see, because when we go to actually roll our pasta out, it's going to make it easier and we're going to have less waste. So anytime you're rolling dough, go forward, go back, spin your dough 90 degrees, bring it all the way back, go all the way forward, and then I'll give it a flip and do the same thing again. So you're just always going to want to like start from the center and work your way out. And you can put some pressure on it because you built good gluten in this pasta. So the dough can take the pressure to it.
And so right now, Ian's just working on it little by little. And you don't really, until you get to the point where Ian's at now, that's when you start really putting the pressure on it, okay?
Yep.
And you'll see it might push back a little, but then when you get to this point, then it will relax. Let's do the test.
Can we read it? Oh, I think you can read it better with the pasta on top.
All right. So I think the test is, can they read it?
Can you guys read it?
I don't know. I think we're going to go a little thinner.
A little thinner.
A touch thinner.
It's a touch thinner. And the reason why we're getting this pasta so thin, guys, is because we're going to be folding it over to make our raviolis. So you have to think, you're going to be taking 2 sheets of pasta and you need to get it the thickness of 1.
Yep.
So this is why typically you wouldn't roll the pasta out quite this thin, but whenever you double it over, you're going to go extra thick.
When you guys are doing it, okay, just take 1 second and hit those edges. If you have an edge that's a little thick, hit it, thin it out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this ricotta filling, and I'm going to show you guys how to make the raviolis. So I got 1 piece of paper here, right? I'm going to cut this edge off here, this edge off here, and we're saving that. Don't waste anything, okay, guys? Edge by edge. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this in half. And then I'm going to cut that half in half. And now I got 4 strips that I'm working with. And each strip is about a finger length, okay? And now what I'm going to do is come in here, and every other inch or so, I'm going to put about a half spoon of this ricotta mixture.
It's also very important to make sure that your ricotta mixture is nice and cold when you're doing this, So only pull your ricotta right before you're about to do it. Because when the ricotta is cold, the colder it is, the tighter it's going to be as a farce, which you're going to just guarantee that none of this ricotta farce is going to slip out of your ravioli when it goes to hit the water.
Okay, so I'm putting it in like a half spoon, and at this point, at this stage, you'll want less, right? You'll think you don't have enough, but when we fold this over and push it down, right, it'll end up being too much. So at this stage, just think less. And so right now, I am just measuring the ricotta with just the tip of my spoon. That's it.
Ravioli is very organic. There's no exact measurements when it comes to the amount of filling that you put in.
And now what we're going to do is come in with the egg wash. And we're just going to go around each little bit, right, and on the edges. So we got our Heston Blanch pot in the back, boiling away.
Yeah, it is.
I like to do, kind of a lot at one time. And what we're looking for here, right, is a little less of an exact measurement, a little more of just looking at it and feel and touch, okay? And I know it's hard to do that the first time. And so what I'm doing now is folding this over. And then I'm pushing down, right? And I kind of want to push out. Pushing down and out. And if you want to give yourself a little bit more room, you can do this strip into 3. So down and out. And then what you're going to do is go around the ricotta with your little fingers and get rid of any potential air bubbles. And so if an Italian grandmother would be making these, there would be no waste of
anything.
And so you guys see here, I'm sealing this edge first. And then I'm pushing this out a little bit. You see that? Down and out a little, okay? Now we're going to the next one. Folding this guy over.
You guys are going to start at one end, working your way down like Jason's doing. So start at one end of the strip, fold that first ravioli over, and just keep working your way down.
And now I'm going to go in and just make sure I get all the air pockets out, right? You can have some teamwork here, and we're just making these beautiful little raviolis. And so there's a couple ways to seal these, okay? You can do it just by hand, or you can use a fork, right? The fork is like your biggest safety measure.
Yeah, it is.
You guys see these here? Very simple, very beautiful, very rustic, okay? See, these are a little thicker, that's a little bit better. These are a little thinner, right? These are a little riskier. But I'm gonna show you, we're gonna make all these work. What I'm gonna do is come in here, cut in the middle of each of these. Okay? Now we got this guy here. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have Ian come in and fork the edges on these.
So just take a little bit of your bench flour, take your fork, just dip it into your flour like so, knock it off, and then you're just gonna come and you're just gonna press with the tip of your fork just down.
And then I got a little plate with flour on it, and really you just want to make sure those edges are sealed. We got this first guy here, right? Going right on there. We're going to hit the top with a touch of flour. And these are beautiful, simple, rustic raviolis. And you can use your knife to pick them up, right? And so I got flour on the bottom there. It's just important you get those nice and sealed, okay? If they're not sealed, when they go in that water, they're going to bust open.
Don't want it.
And so these are very, very simple raviolis. And if you happen to have like a pasta stamp, you can use that.
Or if you have one of those cool little wheel cutters, you know, with the little edge on it, you can use that. That works really well.
I can move the raviolis on the plate. We don't want anything to get too sticky, okay? A lot of times if people get frustrated, it's because you haven't properly floured your surfaces. So you guys see our little raviolis there? Bam! And so now we still got 3/4 of the dough, right? That's for you guys to have fun with. I'm gonna show you guys how we're gonna cook them and make the sauce, okay? So right now, we got our beautiful nano bonded Heston pan. We like this because there's enough surface area and then a rim to it, so when we add the raviolis to it. And now what we're gonna do is blanch the raviolis for 2 minutes. We got the saucepan, right? It's off. I'm adding that butter to it that we talked about. I'm leaving the saucepan off, okay? So we're adding that cold butter to it with the saucepan off. And now we have our pot over here. It's at a boil. We're gonna add a touch of kosher salt to this pan. We're gonna drop it in the water. Drop them all in. Brett, we'll take a 2-minute timer. And what we're gonna do is cook it for 2 minutes, take it out, and I'm gonna show you guys how to make this sauce in the pan where we finish the raviolis in the pan. Awesome. So Ian, what we wanna do is bring that pan up to here. All right, so you guys see all my ravioli is floated. So now, pan on.
You can turn it up high, guys.
Yep, so I'm going in, and we're on low to medium heat. And now we're gonna take a ladle. Okay, guys, this is a 2-ounce ladle. And we're going in there. And so see how it's boiling? That's what you want. Now we're gonna start stirring it around.
And this is a very traditional technique of taking some of this pasta water. What it'll do is it'll bind your pasta sauce together with all of that starch that came off of your pasta that's now in the water. And it really, really brings your sauce together nicely.
So you guys see that? So this is gonna come to a boil, right? And you don't even have to stir it. Don't use a spoon, don't use anything, okay? Just keep swirling it with your hands. And now we're gonna add a pinch of black pepper, right? I would say it's about a 1/2 teaspoon if you gotta measure it. And we're gonna add just a little bit of the Truffle Carpaccio. Keep swirling that around, and you guys see how quickly it almost turned into a glaze. And I'm gonna season this with a touch of truffle salt. And I'm gonna go down into this bowl. Make sure we get all this sauce out of here. We're gonna grate this Parmesan cheese over the top. And then for show, we're gonna hit it with this black pepper. Oh my God, we got a Cacio Pepe.